In 2012, when this card was released, it retailed for $1,000. I managed to pick it up on eBay for $65. Let's check it out. So today we're going to be taking a look at the GTX 690. This is a beautiful card, and if you guys don't know, the cool thing about this is it's actually a dual GPU card. Now back in the day in 2012 when this was released, it retailed for $1,000. Part of that price justification was that it actually has two GK104 processors in it. So you're running SLI, but in one card. And they called it dual GPU. And back then, SLI was a pretty big marketing point. And now it's known more as kind of a gimmick. So few developers stopped bothering with SLI. And eventually one day, NVIDIA just realized, if people are gonna run SLI, they're gonna do it in two cards. But since there is two processors in here, for $65, this should in theory pack a superior amount of power, right? In 2016, I purchased my 1060 for $300, and I purchased this one off eBay for $65. And let's put these two up to the test. I believe if we can get SLI working in games, this card will definitely beat this card. We're gonna figure out if it's worth it. If you are creating a budget build, would it be worth it for a card like this where you get two processors and running an SLI, rather than trying to buy like an RX 570, an RX 580, or a 1060 or something like that? Let's test them out. So we got the GTX 690 in here. We're gonna test a bunch of games. But the thing that is gonna be tricky is getting SLI to work if we need to. In Valorant, it seems like it's a very well optimized game. I'm playing it on the highest settings right now. And in the menu, of course, we're getting 144 FPS, but during the training, I saw that we're getting about, 150, 160, something like that. So I'm pretty confident that it will work on one GPU, because this game is not enabling SLI right now. You can tell in the top left corner, I have the i5-6600K, how much FPS I'm getting, and then the GTX 690, the first GPU and the second GPU. And over here, you can see the first GPU is running at about 75 degrees Celsius. Like I said before, the thermals are a problem, and it's running at 65% usage. And the second one you can see is under 10%, so it is not being utilized at all. We're gonna hop into Valorant first, as this is one of the most popular titles right now, as it just got released. Let's do it. So we're getting very high FPS from like 150 all the way up to like 180, and the first GPU, the only one that's being utilized, is running at 90 to 99% utilization, and it's running quite hot. But the FPS is what really matters. So the fact that we can't utilize SLI on this game is not much of a problem, which is probably going to be good news for a lot of people, because this is a very popular game and one game that people really want to play. So here we go, we're in Apex Legends. This has taken me quite a bit of research and messing around in NVIDIA Profile Inspector to get it to look really nice. Now, if you look up in the top left, we have a 96 and 95% usage in the GPUs, and they're running at about 70 degrees Celsius, and we're floating around 60 FPS. Now, we're on medium settings, so that we can probably go down to low, but this really took some tweaking in the NVIDIA Profile Inspector. Whatever I was using before, I think I was using Star Wars Battlefront, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was just causing the game to go black screen or not work at all. And this one I'm using, I think it's like HDR Gaming Killing Floor or something like that, and this is miles better. We're at about 100 FPS here. Well, we're floating between 60 and 100 FPS, and that's playable. Although for an FPS game, I would definitely like higher. You can see that it's not perfect. We have some visual, glitches going on here. The real artifacts and the glitching that happens is when I pop my armor right there, or someone threw a grenade at me. It definitely gives me some weird graphical issues, but it is definitely playable, that is for sure. And this is way, way better than what I was experiencing before. I'm really happy with this, honestly. This is playable. Here in the death screen, you can also see some glitching, some artifacts on the screen, and it's just not right. It doesn't work like excellent, but from what I was dealing with before for the last probably hour or so, I'm really impressed. So Call of Duty Warzone is obviously easily the most popular battle royale game right now, and it's just one of the most popular games. But no matter what I do, in the NVIDIA Profile Inspector. I've tried all the predefined SLI modes. I've tried changing the DirectX 1011 compatibility bits. No matter what profile I try and how much I try to force SLI, I cannot get it to utilize both GPUs in this game. As you can see, we have one GPU running at 99% and about 76 degrees Celsius, and the other one is completely sitting idle, basically at 37 degrees and 3% utility. Yeah, as you know, we are running just off that one GPU, which for a game like Warzone, it's just not going to be that great. What are we getting here? We're getting about 60 FPS, 50 to 60 FPS, and that is honestly way more than I anticipated. It's playable. Like, I'll probably kill this guy. Check this out. Oh no, don't choke. Let's go, baby. Where you going? Give me that money. Let's go. See, it's playable. I mean, we're even jumping up to, what, 70, 80 FPS? I mean, if it stayed here, that would be ideal. But yeah, as you can see, the temperatures and, you know, it's not ideal at all. But it's definitely playable. And if I could get SLI, I can guarantee I'd probably be floating around like 100 FPS. And playing Warzone at 100 FPS on these settings is about what I get on my 1060. So that just goes to tell you how good this card can work and how much potential it has if you can get SLI to work in a lot of games. But Warzone is just one that I can't figure out. I don't know. If I had more time, I could probably maybe keep tweaking with it. But if you guys know how to potentially get Warzone to work, like if you have like 1080 Ti's, whatever, 2070s, 2080 Ti's, whatever you have, if you potentially have SLI cards and you're able to get it to work, let me know down in the comments because I'd be really interested to see how you got it to work. So next up we got Counter-Strike Global Offensive. This game naturally supports SLI right out of the box. I had to change no settings, no tweaking whatsoever, which is pretty nice. This is a pretty CPU intensive game, but right now we are looking at about 160 to about 180 FPS, and that is really good. If I'm not mistaken, my GTX 1060 on high settings, I don't think it even reaches this. So far I think this thing is actually outperforming that, which is probably the most surprising part about this. You can see we have a little bit of stutter there, so it's hard to tell if it's the server or the graphics card itself, which it looks like the server because everybody's glitching and I'm not really having any weird graphical anomalies. There's no artifacts, there's no real screen tearing or anything like that. It seems to be just the server, which is common. Although this isn't something crazy, it is definitely really reassuring to see that the GTX 690 can perform so well when it's able to fully utilize both those GK104 processors. And if SLI was supported in a lot of games, this would be one of the best cards for the value, especially if you can get them on the used market at like $65 like this, maybe even cheaper. It's just a lot of performance for the price. So moving on to Grand Theft Auto 5, this game is another game that naturally utilizes SLI. I had to change nothing. I'm playing it at high settings here, and we're getting a little bit lower FPS compared to the other games we've tried out. We're floating around, 70 to 75 maybe. It's definitely staying stable around that range. And for this kind of game, it is very enjoyable. You don't need 144 FPS. It's not like a competitive FPS shooter where that would be a really important thing. We're not noticing any lagging, any stuttering, any type of artifacts on the screen. The card is running just how it should, and it's giving us pretty respectable... Yeah, that's a nicer car. Give me that thing. Come here, boy. So I know this could possibly be a game that someone would want to focus on in the GTX 690. Although we're not getting super high frame rates, I believe if that is what you are focused on, then you could lower the settings and probably get more around 100 FPS. Get out of my way. I'm trying to talk. Oh, look what you did to me. Ooh, but you nailed it. So we are in Assassin's Creed Odyssey. As you can see, graphical processing unit 1 and 2, both utilizing about 88%. We are getting 140 FPS, but that is in the menu. So we're going to load the game up, and hopefully when we load in, it's not completely broken, and we are able to play the game without extreme graphical artifacts and stuttering and flickering. So we'll see. Alright, we're in. Here's our problem. When I turn on different profiles, no matter which one I do, and I enable SLI, the FPS just tanks so hard, and the graphics quality just goes to an absolute turd. And it doesn't make any sense. I don't understand why it's so much worse when we have both GPUs running, but if I enable the single GPU, just one of the GPUs to run, it runs just fine. I'm getting like only 40 FPS, but it actually runs and it looks like the quality that it should. So I don't understand exactly with Assassin's Creed Odyssey what makes it just completely makes it look like crap. And there's really nothing I can do. No matter what profile I try, I get around like 10 to 20 FPS, and it's obviously not playable. I mean, it's playable, but it is not enjoyable. Look at how blurry it is. I mean, you can't even see what you're doing, really, and I would not want to play this beautiful game, for one. This game is absolutely incredible, and all the Assassin's Creed games look very good. So if you were forced to play it on something like this, it's just not enjoyable. So we're moving on to Valorant here, and I'm a little bit confused. We were only able to utilize one of those GK104 processors on the GTX 690, yet we still got 160 FPS on high settings, and now I'm on the same exact settings, but we are running the 1060, and I'm getting pretty similar FPS. It's jumping from about like 170 up to like 200 at times, but I thought it'd be much more of a gain than what we're seeing. And I wonder what I'd be getting if I was able to run the GTX 690 in SLI and Valorant. You know, overall, I'm going to have to call it maybe in the GTX 690's favor, because we could have forced SLI, and I'm pretty sure I would have been able to get it to work. And I think it would have gave us better FPS than the 1060 is giving us. So the next game we're going to be taking a look at is Apex Legends. Now, with the GTX 690, we were able to get SLI enabled with a little bit of artifacts and a little bit of glitching, but nothing too bad. And we were looking at about 80 to 100 FPS. Now, the 1060, we are looking at about the same range, but it's a lot more stable, and we have no glitching at all, as expected, and we're also getting some spikes up to about roughly, 100 FPS. So the overall consensus is that these games are pretty even. I'm going to give it to the 1060 though, just because the 690 had the artifacts and a little bit of glitching and stuttering in the video, so that's why I'm going to give it the upper hand. On the GTX 690, we were averaging in Warzone about 50 to 70 FPS, and that is because we were unable to utilize both GPUs and could not get SLI working. So in Warzone on the 1060, we're averaging maybe like high 80s, low 90s to about 100 FPS. So it's a definite significant increase. I feel like if we were able to get SLI working on the GTX 690, that card would perform just on par with the 1060 in Call of Duty Warzone, but I will have no way to confirm that. So let's check out some other games and see how they perform as well. So here we are on the CSGO. This game is more of a CPU intensive game, so the graphics card is going to make less of a difference than it would in other games, and that is reflecting itself pretty clearly right now. Now this was one game that we were able to get the GTX 690 to work in SLI, so the frame rates that we were averaging were about 180, and if you can look up in the top left corner right now, that's exactly what we're at here. We're floating 150 up to 180, but it's the same, maybe even a little bit worse than we were on the GTX 690. When you're able to fully incorporate both those GK104 processors, that is a very strong card. It's not the fact that the GTX 690 is not very powerful. It's a great card, especially since I paid $65. It's just that game developers in a lot of games aren't able to fully utilize those to make it live up to its full potential. And if that was possible, then I would probably buy the 690 over the 1060 because just the price. But it's not the case, and it never will be the case. So although I'm very impressed, this is more of a CPU intensive game, so I'm gonna give it a draw. So here we are on a GTA 5, and I'm getting spun out by a policeman because I ran over some guy by accident, so you should let me off the hook. But on to the good stuff. The GTX 690 was looking at about a 70 FPS average, and that was at the highest settings. And to be honest, I thought the 1060 would be performing a little bit better than that, but it seems to be underperforming. Even, it's single digit, so it's not much of a difference. It's pretty much the same, but I was expecting the 1060 to do, at least 10 to 15 FPS better than the GTX 690, but get out of my way. I'm trying to film a video here. Jeez, man. But once again, the impressive 690 stands up to the 1060, and for 1/3 of the price, I am very impressed. So we're on to Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and on the GTX 690 we were unable to utilize both GPUs, causing us to get extremely low frame rates in this game. We were looking at about 10 to 15 FPS, and on the 1060 we are running at about 50 to 55 FPS. We're on the highest settings, but for some reason, I don't know why, it doesn't look right. You know what I mean? It doesn't look like this is the highest graphics, but I've double checked and everything, and it's set to the highest. I've gone in the video profile inspector and set everything back to default profile, and No matter what, it just seems to be a little bit off. But either way, we're getting much better Oh, that guy just got destroyed. Oh my gosh. Sorry, dude. Did I just take him? I'm taking him? Oh, you poor guy. Not only did I just stab you to death, but I'm picking up your dead body and I'm gonna throw in the creek. See ya. You sit there. So although it's still not great and not what I want, for a game like Assassin's Creed Odyssey, where it's not like a first-person shooter or anything, 60 FPS is definitely doable, and it's much better than the GTX 690 overall. So there we have it. Don't mind my desk full of projects that is just looking like clutter. They are actual projects and I'm working on them. I'm just waiting for some more parts to come in. Thank you, Best Buy, for taking forever. Anyway, the GTX 690 has proved to be capable or even more capable of playing games in 1080p than the GTX 1060. Like I said, I was able to get this card for $65 on eBay, and that is just so much price to performance for this card. Now, every game wasn't able to enable SLI or enable it in an effective manner, but most of the games were, and this is definitely still a great budget card, and it's a lot of fun. And it's absolutely beautiful. Like, this is just such a good looking card with the one fan in the middle, cooling off both those heat sinks and the GK104 processors on each side. And it was just a lot of fun to make this video. I was really curious how this card compared because I've seen them on eBay for such a low price, and it just seems like people want to get rid of them and don't want to deal with them. So you're able to get them for that low price, but it packs a punch. It's a really good gaming card. It really is. But if you guys enjoyed that video as much as I did, make sure to hit a thumbs up. Subscribe if you're new. I'm going to be testing a lot more graphics cards and CPUs and stuff in the future. I got a whole rig coming in the mail. It's going to be awesome. It's going to allow me to do a lot more stuff. So thanks for checking out the video. See you next time.